everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show. Well, after Game 5 of the season for the Jets, if you were watching, and I hope you were, a really, really, really great interview with Connor Hellebuyck on After Hours, performed by Louis DeBrusque and, of course, the great Scott Oake. Already people noticing in the chat room. Of course, we've got this here from Terry Trey, who says, Scott Oake and After Hours with Helly, thumbs up. Beer League says, my Johnston group got you covered, goes to Scott Oake tonight. Very, very good recipient for that. Beer League goes on to say, got to give credit to Sportsnet and Scott Oake tonight for their post-game interview with Hellebuyck. One of the best interviews I've ever watched. Hey, I got to say, the one thing I've found about Connor Hellebuyck is he's very direct in his interviews, and it's funny because they kind of handled some of that in the After Hours. But the longer time you get to spend with him, it's almost kind of like, the train wheels get going and the engine gets moving, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like a little bit of a runaway train. Just I wouldn't say runaway, because it's not like he's out of control or anything like that. But he can really get going, and really interesting, really introspective guy. I say that because I remember when the pandemic was on, one of the things that we did at Sportsnet is we did an at-home series where we did long-form interviews with some of the Jets players when everyone was locked up in their homes, right? Locked up right in the deep parts of COVID. I talked with Josh Morrissey on there. I believe I had a Mark Scheifele interview, and I had Connor Hellebuyck. And boy, oh boy, he was, once you get him going, once you get him introspective, and once you start kind of peeling back the layers beyond, specific saves, how he prepares for the game, the kind of stuff that you're usually talking about. Just a fascinating individual, a fascinating human being with just such a great story, and some of the different ways that story has affected him over the years, or the places that it's taken him. The kind of goaltender who is now near the top. Sure, look tonight like he's at the top of the goaltender mountain. But to come from where he came from, really introspective individual. And I thought Scott Oake and Louis DeBrusque did a phenomenal job of getting that out of him tonight. Great job by them. I hope you watched it. If you've got the PVR and you can rewind it, I would go back and do so, just to pump up a little bit more Sportsnet stuff for y'all to see. We got a lot of good stuff on there. I call that the Winnipeg Jets karma game. Yes, if you believe in karma or we're doubting karma, I think that game is a perfect example of it. And I'm going to break it down like this. I think if you take a look at the 5 games the Jets have played so far this year, to me, that's the 4th best game that the Jets have played so far this year. And even their 5th best game that they played, the one against the Los Angeles Kings, their first period of that game was fairly dominant. I think that first period in the LA Kings game was a better period than the Winnipeg Jets had played tonight in this game. But we've talked about it on this podcast. The Jets did a lot of the right things, and things did not tilt their way in a lot of those first few games. They tilted their way tonight. The Edmonton Oilers, a team that is, in a little bit of trouble. I mean, 1 point less trouble than the Winnipeg Jets are in. But on a night like tonight, they kind of undo themselves. Terrible mistake by their goaltender allows the Jets to tie up that game and ultimately take it to overtime. And then a little bit of luck in the idea that Connor McDavid does not make his way onto the ice. I did want to say this quickly before we get really digging into the Jets. Sometimes there will be arguments that Leon Draisaitl is in the stratosphere of Connor McDavid when it comes to the best player in the world argument. I thought that tonight was a really good example of how much less dangerous that Oilers team looks when Connor McDavid is not on the ice. And I thought it was put really well in the broadcast afterwards. I think it was Elliot Friedman who said it, that the Jets took the time out. And there you go. That may be a gotcha covered play of the game, or maybe even a save of the game candidate for Rick Bowness. But calls the overtime so that he can get Josh Morrissey Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor out onto the ice together. And I thought it was good insight by the panel suggesting that at that point with Connor McDavid out, they believe that they've got the best three players or the best trio to send out on the ice. And it sure looked like it as they Harlem Globetrotter their way to a gorgeous, gorgeous game-winning goal in overtime. Can you say lamplighter? You should be in that case. But I would suggest that if Leon Draisaitl had gone out of that game and Connor McDavid was out on the ice with, you could throw out Evan Bouchard, you could throw out Evander Kane, you can throw out Zach Hyman, Darnell Nurse. There's a lot of different trios you can make. I don't think the same can be said. I agree. The Jets had the best possible trio left in that game with Connor McDavid out. If it's Draisaitl out and Connor McDavid back in that situation, I think that the Oilers still have the best trio because having Connor McDavid makes it that way. That's as far as I'm going to dive into that. Just want to get into the idea that I think this is a karma situation. The Winnipeg Jets outshot Handley, but it doesn't mean I think they played a terrible game. I think as good as Connor Hellebuyck played, I don't think they hung him out to dry despite the high shot count. I can't think of a ton of saves that he had to make that were of the eye-popping variety or that he looked like he was put in a lot of trouble. I think the Jets did, allowed volume, but there wasn't a lot in the way of quality. So give them credit there in that situation. But no doubt the Jets lost a lot of games earlier this season because their goaltending wasn't where they needed to be. I'd put it last show that I wouldn't necessarily say that the goalies have cost the Winnipeg Jets game, but you could say undoubtedly that the goalies haven't been going and outdueling the goaltenders on the other side of the ice, with the big mistake that Stuart Skinner makes in this game and the solid play of Connor Hellebuyck after the first 6 shots of the game. He no doubt was the best goaltender in this game, and in my opinion, a huge reason the Winnipeg Jets walk out with a victory, 2 points, that if it had gone the other way, and we're talking about a team starting 1-4 again, I think the Jets are going to be fine to a degree as long as they keep playing the way they're playing. That requires them to keep playing the way they're playing. But let me tell you this, 2-3 is a huge improvement over going 1-4. That's my take on the whole thing. Let's bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny. Kenny, my main man, I thought that you were maybe in Edmonton and totally forgot that you asked me to go golfing yesterday. And the idea of golfing at this time of year in the late October kind of blew my mind. So maybe my mind just rejected the whole concept of the whole thing. But
you were too busy being a TV star on our pal Jeffy's show.
We go.
Complete with the backdrop right there. Love to see it. Nice planning by the boys. Yeah, nice planning.
Those guys give us such props.
Nice planning
on that show. I gotta say, like the Jeff Merricks, the Elliot Friedmans of the world, the Ron McLeans, they give us such good props for what we do here in this space, and I really do appreciate that. As I'm sure I hope our audience appreciates that. But looking good in the Wake Up T-shirt. I haven't seen that for a while. That looks so good. That logo, everything like that. I'm not going to say it puts you in the category with Frankie and the boys, but it definitely has you beating me with. I forgot that I'm wearing like the torn up shirt that I changed the spark plugs and the spark plug wires in my truck today. So you win
always
the
working, always
today.
Working. Always working.
And you didn't even need to use Frankie and the boys down at Vittorio Rossi, but you would easily win the style off if you at home went out and went down to see Frankie and the boys at Vittorio Rossi. Go check them out on Corden Avenue. Walk in, let them know Kenny and Renny sent you. and tell Frankie and the boys you need to be done upright, and they will do you upright. And before we do move on, Ken, I just want to say I've already brought up the Johnston Group got you covered play. For me, I know you sent me something earlier, but that's got to be Rick calling the timeout. I mean, that a coach wants to put his thumbprints on the game. He did right there. Do you agree? We got a Kenny and Renny OG got you covered. Johnston Group play of the game right there.
Yeah, I think it's fair, and I like the analysis too, like the ability to get. I mean, Scheifele had the best chance of overtime on the first shift, so it made sense that they went back to that line at the end of overtime as well. It was definitely a smart call. Honorable mention, though, for sure, to the layout by Dylan DeMello. That block shot there, I think, was important. The Oilers were kind of all over the Jets for a while in the third. The shots were 9-3 at one point, but yeah, I mean, we'll get into him in a minute. But yeah, I love the timeout call. Lots of things, lots of moves by Rick Bowness in game that I liked, and we'll get into all those. But yeah, I definitely like the timeout there. It was a super smart call, and that line needed it because there were some times during the game where they spent a lot of time in the D zone and they were chasing the little disc. But yeah, hey, they found a way to get it done, and the timeout was definitely part of it. I think it's a perfect under the radar kind of play there that we can give from our good friends at the Johnston Group on the We've Got You Covered right there.
Well, I'll tell you something. It makes sense that Rick wins the We Got You Covered award, brought to you by the Kenny and Renny OGs, because Rick's a bit of an OG himself.
Indeed.
The longest tenured coach ever behind an NHL bench. Makes sense. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Well, look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Okay, Ken, I love to give you the wide open buffet because I always get one before you show up to the show because you're always late for the show. It's kind of your fault, but I'm going to make it up for you here. Give me your assessment of what happened in that game overall.
Yeah, buddy. Well, you were calmly watching Connor Hellebuyck with Scott Oak and Louie like the rest of our chat room. I was pounding fervishly on the keyboard, listening to the post-game interviews and trying to get the quotes typed up there for the game over story. Mike Sawatsky working overtime, buddy. I'm telling you about the solution. The solution was get the story done. The solution is getting it done. Shout out to Mike Sawatsky for having to work overtime on the desk. That's all we needed was overtime on a night where the puck drop is 9:09 in Edmonton. Anyways, lots to write about, lots to discuss, lots to break down. Talked about Rick Bowness first and foremost. Our friends in Edmonton over at Edmonton Sports Talk, I was on with Tommy Gazzola, our pal there before the game. And I did have to say, you can go to the receipts and check the video. I definitely called Alex Iafallo getting the bump up to that first line tonight with Tommy in the pregame show there. I just had a feeling that he was a guy that would kind of, that Swiss Army knife kind of mentality. I know that Rick prefers the right shot there, but I thought that was a smart move. That was a really good change, and it worked out for the Jets. I mean, it didn't necessarily lead to better Corsi or whatever else in the analytics side, but later on in the game, Scheifele comes through. But I just thought that Iafallo was going in the game, and Appleton looked more comfortable back on that usual checking line there with Nito Niederreiter moving over to the left side. Iafallo's hustle it's an obvious miscue by Skinner, Sean. You definitely eloquently took care of that, but that only happens because of the tenacity and the speed of Iafallo. Stuart Skinner should know. He's faced Alex Iafallo in the playoffs. So he should have known that he was not going to win that race. And it was obviously a costly play, and then the Nemestikov can't get that loose there. And we've talked about the Jets' self-inflicted wounds. I mean, that's an absolute classic by the Oilers, and in a time where they are searching for themselves. I mean, we're not going to have to spend too much time on them, but yeah, I mean that's a big difference, as you mentioned, 1-4 versus 2-3, and now the Jets will welcome the St. Louis Blues to town, and it's a big matchup for them in the division. But man, just a great effort play by Alex Iafallo. All effort makes it happen. Vlad Namestnikov, points in consecutive games after the bump up for him, the promotion. There's another smart coaching decision, Sean. And we'll get into this a little bit more, but just an absolute awesome effort by Rasmus Kupari today. Like, you talk about times where the game changed. Obviously, Connor Hellebuyck is the star of the show, but another one of those got you covered plays was Kupari using his speed in the first period. Jets down 2-0. He blows by Leon Draisaitl, and next thing you know, the Jets are getting a power play goal from Josh Morrissey to get into the game. In a game, Sean, quite frankly, they weren't in the game, right? No. They were getting skated into the ground at that point. So and Kupari draws 3 minor penalties in the contest in a game where he didn't, I don't think let's double check. I don't think he finished with 12 minutes, but he still drew 3 penalties, noticeable on the fourth line. Yeah, just under 12 minutes. So, that's what you want from your fourth line guys, not just treading water, doing things that give the team a bump. So I thought that was a really important part of the game tonight. Some people have mentioned it in the chat already. Brendan Dillon dropping the gloves. I know some people don't like fighting and whatever else, but those two guys trying to get their respective teams going. Evander a little bit less.
Yes, I think the motivation for Evander
complimentary,
is a little more selfish. I think, yeah.
Yeah, and people who didn't watch, I'm guessing most people in the chat room watched, but Evander Kane with another this is I think the number 2 all-time classic. The only runner-up. This one today is the runner-up though to the all-time classic that I'll get to in a minute. But for folks who didn't see, Evander Kane basically said the reason why he fought Brendan Dillon was because he barely played in the first period and he wanted Jay Woodcroft to notice him. So the only other time that I would say he was more direct directed at his coach was when he walked into the booth in Chicago, into Gord Miller's booth, and basically said, "I'm a healthy scratch," even though Evander hadn't skated with the team in 2 weeks. He walked into the booth in Chicago and said, "I'm a healthy scratch." Well, but you didn't practice yesterday and you weren't on the morning skate. So that to me is my all-time Evander favorite, and not just because he walked right past me in Chicago to walk into Gord's booth to make the proclamation. But anyways, that's way too much time spent on that topic. But, the Jets, at times they didn't look good at all, but they avoided the big-time self-inflicted wound, Sean. And that, to me, is one of the biggest developments today. We talk about this a lot.
That's great analysis,
sometimes... the Jets, when they don't have their best, it says something that they can beat a team like Edmonton in order to find a way to, that whole find a way to win. I know we've kind of debated back and forth about it over the years. In a case like this, where the Jets have had the opposite happen to them, and I think this is what you're getting at in terms of the karma. Yeah. They probably could have had a different result, certainly against Calgary and obviously potentially against Vegas the way that they played. But when you don't get that, what do you do about it? And I love the fact that Josh Morrissey was on this, pedestal, what would I say, soapbox this morning saying, hey, it's great that you can say we're playing very well and we like a lot of what we're doing, but you eventually got to put your money where your mouth is and start earning wins. So what did the Jets do? They found a way to get a win on a night where they clearly were not at their best, but they found a way to get the job done. Sean, you know this. It's almost impossible to win the special teams battle against the Edmonton Oilers, a team that clips at around 30% with the man advantage. The Jets won the special teams battle 2-1. They're almost unbeatable in extra time 3-on-3 because they normally have Leon and Connor going over the boards, and very few people can keep up with Leon and Connor. Well, Connor wasn't available, so in overtime, the Jets got 3 incredibly skilled players to connect with. I love the Harlem Globetrotters reference, by the way, because that was a perfect example. Win an offensive zone draw, great movement, and getting to the net, beat your player to the net, and then see a perfect pass get made. I mean, Josh Morrissey almost set up the winner late in regulation when he fed Nikolai Ehlers for that chance that he never really fully corralled. But, a lot of good things for the Jets, and probably the most important development for them was what Josh Morrissey told reporters in Edmonton after the game. That's a validation kind of win. And Sean, the Jets don't care that the Oilers are 1-3-1. They beat a team that is considered to be one of the Stanley Cup favorites, and it doesn't matter to them or anybody else in the league if they're off to a slow start by their own standards. The Jets found a way to get the job done. And the most important development was not finding a way to win. The most important development was Connor Hellebuyck looking like Connor Hellebuyck. That's the most important thing that happened on this night.
No doubt. Hey, you know what? I'm just going to go back and quickly talk about Skinner's play. I love this. Beer League says, can we get a pristine roofing wake up of the night segment for bad takes? I love this. We're going to move this over, but it's a good enough idea that I'm just going to go with it tonight, and that goes to Skinner. I'll say this. It's a shorthanded goal. Darnell Nurse is right there. He may not win that puck battle, Darnell Nurse, but the worst thing that's going to happen is the Jets are going to take it up and tie it up in the corner. It is not worth risking the lead to jump out and take that play. Absolutely. Like when the camera is following the players coming down the ice, and all of a sudden I see the goaltender there, and I'm thinking to myself, what is he doing? He's not going to get to that puck. And you can see Darnell Nurse, there's a point where he suddenly turns and looks and sees his goaltender. You can think the same thing. And then he just bails on trying to get the puck, even though he probably could have tied him up in the corner. But he knows at that stage that he has to protect the net that's been abandoned here, and knows his goalie's not going to go there and go straight to the net to try and keep it from going in. But this really is like that. That's why I said karma. Like, I agree with you, Ken. The Jets didn't shoot themselves in the foot tonight, okay, which is a good development for a team that as good as they played. And I said that before. Rick Bowness would be the first one to say we keep shooting ourselves in the foot here. He also said if we keep allowing 4 to 5 goals a game, we're not going anywhere. Well, they hold them to 2 here tonight, and they do so after allowing 2 goals on their first 6 shots. But this is 2 teams right now that really needed a win. And it was, and I'll say this, like beyond that, beyond the Evander Kane chirping his coach in the first intermission, the 2 penalties that Janmark took there, I thought were just stupid, lazy penalties while they're up in the game. I got to say, I thought the Jets kind of gave one back when Mason Appleton took that penalty. That was just like, what are you doing in that situation? You're chasing the game. But overall, if you're looking for a reason why the Edmonton Oilers find themselves going 1-3-1 on the season, it's right there. And that's the difference between these 2 teams. I think that's a great take of Ken's. The Oilers shot themselves in the foot repeatedly, got away with it quite often in this game, but that one was just remarkable and most definitely worthy of a pristine roofing wake up of the night. And hey, why don't we give a shout out? Hey, why don't you go wake up North End Rick right now and ask him to come out and check out your roof, because he's the guy who would come if you are going to give Pristine Roofing a call. Give North End Rick a call. You see him on the show here all the time. You'll see him at your house. Maybe he'll even bring a ladder. I don't know how he does this thing. You got to ask him. And the best way to do it is 1-204-981-6289, or you can call Pristine Roofing at 1-204-237-7663. Let's give a shout out to our, what's that?
And you'll love this reference because I think we were standing beside each other when it happened. Like, that was Josh Archibald-esque, that penalty. That's the kind of wake-up moment we're talking about, where the Oilers were in complete control of Game 3. And Josh Archibald takes the 5 minute
series. Ready to turn that series.
It's a back-to-back scenario, all of the things. Josh Archibald takes a run at Logan Stanley for no reason in particular when the game was under control for the Oilers. And then
Jets Josh Morrissey scores the first goal on the power play that results as of that, and then they turn around and send it to overtime. And if I remember correctly, Nick Ehlers seals the deal in overtime. No doubt. I wanted to give a shout out to Cambrian Credit Union, the bank that both Kenny and I owe our houses to, and because we both have mortgages with the fine folks at Cambria Credit Union. Like I said, this is a generational thing in my household. The father-in-law has been there since the beginning. My wife grew up with an account there. Now our 2 kids grow up with unfee accounts at Cambria Credit Union as well. So, listen, do yourself a favor. If you need to go to the best in banking, you know where to go. Go see the folks at Cambria Credit Union. I want to talk about Vladdy Namestnikov, Ken. Vladdy Namestnikov, I have to say, I was talking with someone a little bit earlier today. I like to describe him as a unicorn. I think what makes him special is he signed with the team, and you and I talked about this. I think we may have talked about it going into the offseason on the show. This is kind of the first place where Namestnikov was able to find a team that was like, we want you to stick around. We want you to make this a home of yours for a while. And so he re-signs with the Winnipeg Jets. I thought it was, especially after what he did last year, and I thought there was a lot of situations where the Jets weren't playing well last year, and Vladdy Namestnikov would jump up into a spot, and they'd take off in that spot, wherever he played, jack of all trades, whatever you want to call him, Swiss Army knife. He is a guy who's helped every time he's been called upon, but usually after he gets called upon, he kind of gets relegated down to the 3rd or 4th line again. And that's just kind of been his lot in life. I'll say this, Namestnikov has gone to enough places where for whatever reason, it didn't fit, right? Like it didn't fit when he went to Ottawa. It didn't fit necessarily when he went to Dallas, even though Rick Bowness liked him from there. But he didn't stick around there long-term. His second go around in Tampa didn't work. He was basically moved. I know that he was legally a San Jose Shark, but never wore the jersey, if I'm correct, Ken. Yeah, never wore the jersey. He's found a place here in Winnipeg, but I'll be honest with you, it didn't sit right with me that Vladdy Namestnikov started on the 4th line. Based on what he did last year, I had thought you better be darn sure that Cole Perfetti is ready to step into center at the NHL level, because you're putting him under a lot of duress to do so. I wouldn't have minded them starting with Namestnikov there and then maybe slipping Perfetti in here and there and kind of trying to find a way to slowly bring him into that spot. And I don't mind if they do that now, but I did not like the idea of Vladdy Namestnikov on the 4th line. I get maybe that they were trying to make it a little bit more of a scoring line, but the Winnipeg Jets are lucky. And the reason they are a unicorn in my mind, or he is a unicorn in my mind, is Vladdy Namestnikov. You can put him on the 4th line, and he's probably not as miffed that he's on the 4th line as I am, Ken. Like, I'm miffed that he was there. I didn't like that he got put there. I thought he'd done enough and earned enough with the Winnipeg Jets in his time here. Never mind that he re-upped in a market where it's not easy to get guys to re-up. And I was miffed he started there because I thought he deserved better. He doesn't get miffed. He's just like, okay, you need me to do that? I'll go do that. Okay, you need me to do this? Now I'll go do that. And I just think that ever since he's been pulled up to that 2nd line, things have looked a lot better. And even before that, Ken, he's got that one play where he goes to net. He throws a backhander on net, puts on the brakes, gets in the goalie's face, chirps in his ear, forces Evan Bouchard to move him. Vladdy Namestnikov is going out, and believe me, he's not a big guy, and yet he goes out and he's putting his thumbprints all over the game every time he's out there. And I think it was fitting that he goes out there, Ken, and is the guy who sends this to overtime.
Yeah, I was calling for Vlad Namestnikov to be re-signed well before the season was over last year. I know we agreed on that. And you're right. I mean, also to sign a multi-year deal. I mean, I sat with Vlad Namestnikov after a morning skate, and we know that players are only focused on the playoffs. But I asked him, I said, man, knowing how Rick feels about you, wouldn't you like to put some roots down? And he was like, of course I would. I mean, and so he knew that this was a good situation for him. And I agree with you. I didn't see Vlad as a 4th line player going into this year. I thought, at worst, he was going to be on the checking line with Adam Lowry. Let's not forget, one of his first games, if not his first game, was against Edmonton in Winnipeg, right? And on a Saturday night, hockey night in Canada game, he went up head-to-head with Lowry's line, I believe with Appleton and Lowry. And not only did they keep McDavid under wraps, I think he had a goal and an assist in the game. I remember writing my lead about him. So I love the way that he plays. He's feisty. He can give you whatever you need, center, wing, either wing, power play, penalty kill, whatever it takes. down by one, up by one, protect a lead, go get a goal with an extra attacker. Like, what he's ready for his number to be called. But he's not giving you the over the shoulder looking at you saying, hey, why don't you call my number? He just waits for his number to be called. Then he gets the job done. And that's a pretty important quality for any part of the lineup. And when you have a guy that can play up and down the lineup, it's important. Yeah, I mean, I love the way that he plays, and, you know, nice to see him getting rewarded. And let's not kid ourselves. Nikolai Ehlers is playing better since Nemesnikov went up on that line. For all the people that said, oh, he was his worst line mate last year because the analytics told you so, don't forget it was a small sample. And the players like playing with one another, and it's shown so far.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you were still going there. Hey, Ken, I'm gonna go and do something a little different than I usually do. It hasn't been called, but I don't know why. I'm hot as heck in my house. The hat is too much. I need to let some.
Yeah, get rid of that hat. So anyways, you're making me angry with this hour with that hat.
Renny show. Here we go. This isn't a headband, it's a sweatband, for God's sakes, by this point. Hey, I did want to say I probably haven't cooled down from changing the spark plugs. Yeah, I'll say it again. Yeah, I'm trying to act like I'm working class here. Some of you seem to have a problem with it. I don't know how many of you changed the spark plugs in your own vehicles, but Renny pulled it off today. He's got the banged up knuckles to prove it, and the core temperature that just won't die after that. Because, like, for the first time in a long time, Ken, I put in an honest day of work here. You know it, I know it. What we do is not work. So I went out, and I just can't seem to cool down now. So all you working folks out there, thumbs up from Renny, because I couldn't do this too many times in a row.
Yeah, this is a good lead in here, because you know what you could do to cool off? You should grab a lamplighter from your fridge, because we're half an hour in and we should be getting to that.
You want to do that?
Yeah, it's half an hour. Let's go.
Like, do you really want me to go grab a
lamplighter? No. I want you to do the lamplighter promotion. You can have one after the show.
On this show in a long time right now, Ken, for a second. But if you want to go and head in the direction of the lamplighter, I want to talk about Kyle Connor afterwards, because people have a couple comments about him. But first, why don't we get into it? Your lamplighter of the night.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about it. It's this is another one like the other, you know, like the save of the game the other night. The lamplighter is obvious. It's the OT winner. You know, great effort by Iafallo and Nemesnikov to get the tire. And honestly, the Morrissey goal is a beauty, and a great screen by Mason Appleton. Yes, I understand it wasn't going as smoothly on the top line, but that Morrissey goal doesn't happen without the screen by Appleton. But for a team that absolutely needed a win, as ridiculous as that sounds 5 games into a season, just everything about that play, winning the draw pass to Connor, getting it back, getting it to Morrissey, getting to the net, winning the battle, redirection, all of the things. On a night where he wasn't at his best, Mark Scheifele found a way to really deliver. And Sean, we've talked about that a lot too. You know, he's a guy who wants to be measured against the best, and sometimes it hasn't gone well. Tonight, Mark Scheifele on hockey night, primetime game, late night game on hockey night against 2 of the best players in the world. Mark found a way to get the Jets an extra point, and that's why his goal is the lamplighter. Brought to you by the good folks at TransCanada Brewing Company.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, I'm going to jump on board with that, but I am going to say I just wanted to throw this up here. Bobby B, who I think was our lamplighter winner the other day, says that was Snake Charmer and OT. I couldn't agree with this assessment more. I want to say this because I know that sometimes in the past, or most of the time in the past, I've kind of referred to Snake Charmer offense as in a disparaging manner, right? And I don't take that back. I think the Winnipeg Jets at a lot of times turn into this team that weaves back and forth when they should be going direct to the net. I think that disappears during the playoffs. But you know what else disappears during the playoffs is 3-on-3 overtime, right? 3-on-3 overtime is the time for Snake Charmer offense. It's an artificial part of the game. You're going out, you're trying to take risks to create that extra point because you're not losing any points by that stage. And for the most part, if the other team gets an extra point, it's not the biggest deal in the world. You're going for it. So that's the time to do it. That was Snake Charmer offense. It was gorgeous Snake Charmer offense. I know a lot of people in the past really liked the Snake Charmer offense. It looks really pretty when it works. I just had a problem with the idea of trying to do something over and over again that just did not work as the season went on. But Bobby B absolutely nails that Snake Charmer offense at the right time of the game by three guys who are just phenomenal at doing it. Well done, Lamplighter, no doubt. And it is time to announce our Lamplighter winner from our last show. That would be Derek YWG. Derek YWG, you have won a frosty, delicious 8-pack of the Nectar of the Gods Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friend at Trans-Canada Brewing Company, as Ken put it up there before. If you don't want to wait for Kenny and Renny to give you or gift you your 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, head on down, go see them. They don't just have that. They got a lot of stuff over at 1290 Keniston in their tap room. Get some pizza, get some food, get some appies, and get yourself some lampies. They are the nectar of the gods. Ken, let's move on to the keg save of the game.
Yeah, for me, it's very early in the game, but the breakaway stop on Fogle and then the follow-up. The follow-up wasn't necessarily as impressive, but one of the few areas where Connor Hellebuyck, I wouldn't say has trouble, but I would say breakaways have not always been his best, whether it's shootout or breakaways. He made a really great save at a time when it could have unraveled for the Jets. A breakaway after falling behind 2-0, things could have unraveled quickly. Connor stood tall, makes 2 big saves, and finds a way to stabilize a group that was in danger of being skated out of the building, quite frankly. The Jets found a way to deal with adverse situations, and they were able to stay in the game because Connor Hellebuyck was so good in the first period, where the Jets allowed, I think, 18 or 19 shots on goal. And he really stabilized. And Sean, he overplayed the power play goal by a lot, and that doesn't happen often. He has to respect Leon from the sharp angle, but he overcommitted, and he knew it. Like, there wasn't one of those where he was disappointed. He wasn't in, really back. He couldn't square up the one-timer by Bouchard because he'd overcommitted. But after that, he put up a brick wall, essentially. I mean, you're right. He wasn't necessarily under siege after that, but getting the Jets with, out of the first period was the first step. And then he just wouldn't let anything else past him. And that was so critical for a team that really needed him to steal the game. He stole the game. You say whatever you want. He gave up 2 on 6 shots. Big deal. He stole this game for the Winnipeg Jets. Yes, he had help. There were big-time performances all over the place, but Connor Hellebuyck allowed his team to find its footing and then got them the extra point.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, I would just say his overall performance is the save of the game, because I do think that he saved them in this game, and it got to be one of those situations where it's hard to look at one and be like, oh wow, he stole this goal or he stole that goal, because it was big and boring and he was hard to beat. He didn't give up. I mean, if you take a look at there's a really good opportunity where Leon Draisaitl comes skating in, and he's money from that spot, right? Like, he's one of the greatest. Oh, geez, I'll throw this in as the save of the game. There's one play, and it didn't look like much, but Connor McDavid is taking the puck behind the net, and he reverses it to Leon Draisaitl, who's waiting for it. And you hear him, he hits the outside of the post, but it's impossible for him to score there because Connor Hellebuyck is on top of his game in the way that he doesn't need to sprint to that post or do anything. He never leaves the post, because he's thinking his way through the game. You heard him talking on his interview with Scott Oak about the idea of thinking his way through the game and using his brain. He doesn't fall, and we're talking about the best, most deceptive player in the NHL today. He doesn't fall for it, and it goes back to Leon Draisaitl. He made Leon Draisaitl, I thought, look extremely human tonight, and that's what some of the best players in the league do. It is good to see Connor Hellebuyck go from not having a quality start before this game here tonight. That will definitely go down as a quality start, no doubt. That I agree with you is the keg, or I'll throw that out as my keg save of the game.
Well,
The
King
rest of you out
Sawchuk
there,
agrees with you right here. To
yeah,
play all
yeah,
night long.
yeah, no doubt.
Nice shout out to Lionel Richie there. Kim,
Anyway,
nice work.
yeah, that is well done. Hey, keg save of the game winner from our last show, that would be Corey Olivier, who I think can actually put in some grind today, and he went out and looked at all the comments. And I believe you said that Corey Olivier left the comment on our YouTube page.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
There you go. So Corey Olivier, that's a great place to do. We've actually had a couple of winners from there. They've been lucky there. But Corey Olivier, you know what to do. You got to get a hold of me. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. I need your full name, which I think we already know. But I need an email, and we will send you your $50 gift certificate because you gave a shout out for the keg save of the game in our last show. So if you're in this show and you haven't given us your keg save of the game, hashtag the keg, people. What the heck is wrong with you? Listen, I know it's 1:10 in the morning, but there's 282 of you out there right now. And listen, I'll talk to you about it again. All you people listening afterwards on the pod, I gave you crap last time. I'm going to do it again. Some of you felt like you got yelled at by Renny. Those of you who didn't feel like you got yelled at, take this as your cue. I'm yelling at you. Get going. Start sending us the message. We want to know your keg save of the game. And if you do that, you automatically enter yourself to win a $50 gift certificate. We give one away every show thanks to the fine and generous people at the keg. $50 gift certificate. All you got to do is tell us what your keg save of the game was. There you go. What's up, Ken?
Visit one of those 3 locations in Winnipeg.
There you go. Good stuff. Okay. A couple of comments here. The THP Power says not happy with 81's game. He was floating. I think someone else said that they weren't happy with him. I did star the comment, but I can't find it at this moment. So let's just move on from that. But I do want to talk about it. I would say this. I was noticing this. Yeah, Savage 900 says Casey had a rough night. Couldn't hit the side of the barn tonight. He was missing some shots. He did get open. I think even when KC has bad games, he usually puts himself in a situation, gets some shots. I find that in a lot of games against the Edmonton Oilers, that KC starts to look like a bit of a passenger sometimes, Ken. And I think what happens is Connor McDavid gets the puck and he starts doing his thing. And I think what happens for a speedy guy like Kyle Connor is there's no speed to be had because someone faster than you has the puck and just really isn't relinquishing it that often. And I know the matchup wasn't directly all night one-on-one Scheifele's line versus Kyle Connor's line, but it happened enough tonight. And I wondered your thoughts on the idea that if you're a speedy player who gets the puck and just doesn't like to let go of it like Kyle Connor does, when you get a guy who let's be honest, is better at that than you are, do you think that kind of takes the wind out of a guy's sails?
Yeah, I'm not disputing it at all. I just, some nights, but that's the other thing about Kyle Connor. Like, there's some nights where he isn't dangerous and then he scores the overtime winner in a playoff game. Like Kyle's a guy who sometimes only needs one chance. Tonight he had 3 shots on goal, 8 shot attempts. So you notice him. In terms of broadside of a barn, sometimes your sights are off and when you're shooting to score, I think he had a one-timer opportunity where it was high and wide, so on TV it looks like it was not close. But Louis DeBrusque thought he was in the building, sorry, and he thought it was almost there. So I didn't particularly think he was as dangerous as we've seen. But having said that, he still had a couple of high danger chances. And when Kyle is rolling, that puck is on his stick and in the back of the net. So I wouldn't be overly concerned. Were there some times puck management and plays along the wall? Is he at his best there? No, but like I said, there are some players have other strengths, and Kyle's strength is as a shooter. And for all the people on him, like in a game when he was quiet, he had 8 shot attempts. He's got 3 goals in 5 games, so he's not going to score 82, but he's going to score a lot of goals this year. I think he has another level to play at, and in terms of his speed, Sean, Kyle's a very fast player. So in the games where it's at a high pace and you don't notice him, he's not always skating. And yeah, I didn't think he had his full speed game rolling today either. But I mean, I wouldn't be concerned about Kyle. He's played well to start the year. Some nights you just don't have your best.
I gotta say, I like this comment here. S. James says, Renny yelling at the peasants like one of the French elitists in 1770, and we know what happened after that. I gotta say this, Ken. I yell at the audience once, and I get this flack like this from people. You've been screaming "wake up" at our audience for how many years now, and getting away with it? You're gonna have to tell me how you do it.
You gotta know your role. That's how. Gotta know your role. Just like Vladdy Nemestikov. You gotta know your role.
You yeah, and see, I'm getting mad over it. Vladdy's not, and there's Vladdy in the NHL tearing it up and doing stuff like he did tonight. I guess you're right. Hey, before we do move on, one last shout out to Sweet Lou Ferlin.
Yeah, for all the folks in the realty market, if you have needs that need to be met with buying, selling, just curious what the house on the corner might be going for, you can contact our good friend and friend of the show, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. You can also reach him by email, lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast. And I think we've got something we're going to add. Beer League had a good suggestion earlier that we immediately launched in, but we got another suggestion for Sweet Lou here that we're gonna bring into play next week. I think we're gonna wait on. We're gonna have a little bit of suspense and drama for that one. We've got a good suggestion from a listener and good friend of mine. So we think we've got something that we're gonna incorporate into the show.
Let's see what we can do. Hey, I know people already love talking about Lou. Just another excuse is good. Here, speaking of talking about Lou, I'm going to say something. You know, when you look and you admire someone and you just you don't even think about it. You subconsciously just kind of follow along with someone. Take a look at his glasses here, people. I'm going to show you something. Rennie's getting old and he needed to pick up reading glasses for the first time in his life. I just went out and got him this summer. And take a look at Lou's glasses. Now take a look at these. I'm going to stare off into the distance just like Lou is right now. Everyone ready for this? Same glasses. I went out and I got a pair of Lou Ferlins because they look so darn good. I didn't even know about it. By the way, I haven't shown anyone me with the reading glasses on because, well, I don't know if Rennie's getting old. He didn't want to announce it to everybody, but we know these people. They won't tell anyone. It's good stuff out there.
What we will tell everyone is that jacket Lou's wearing is from Frankie and the boys at Vittorio Rossi, though.
Everyone knows that. I mean, you can't look that good without going and seeing Frankie and the boys. That's how it goes. Okay, we got to talk about some people here before this game gets in. 12:30 left. Let's get into Scheifele. Just on what you're seeing. There's a couple of really great comments. I love this comment here that's coming in. There we go. Nice game by 55, says David Zurich. Especially loved the duel with Draisaitl where Scheifele stole the puck from Leon, lost it back to him, but refused to quit and took it back. So I take a look at this situation. Great point out here, David Zurich. This reminds me, you've got Leon Draisaitl, who isn't the biggest, toughest guy in the league, and yet he probably loses a lot fewer puck battles than almost anyone else in the league. And once he's got a puck on his stick, it's almost impossible to get it away from him. Mark Scheifele goes out and out battles him, doesn't give up on the battle, gets it, loses it, gets it back. It reminds me of him going up against PLD, a guy that we've talked about is like the bull in the china shop in the NHL. And Mark Scheifele back checking on him, not just taking him off the puck, but knocking him to the ground in the process. These are more examples I keep saying. Never mind that Mark Scheifele scores the overtime winner in a beautiful snake charmer manner. But the fact that he heads out for the most part tonight, does a pretty good job defensively. But like these battles to me go back to the idea, and I'd said it before, and I said it on Twitter a little while ago, but this to me looks like the most engaged version of Mark Scheifele that we have seen in years. And it's something I always said, everyone knows my take on him was you let a guy like that go, like people were suggesting this summer. It's hard to find guys who can score like that. And the counter argument from people was, yeah, but defensively, he's costing us. And that was true for a lot of times. But I knew from what we saw from him in the 2018 days, Ken, that he was capable of being a really great two-way center and a really good defensive centerman while still being able to score. And he is showing that and more every single night so far this season. Small sample size, but what a good sample he's put forth.
Yeah, no doubt. And a lot of the receipts that other people might be checking, Mark's not here for that, but he needed to elevate, and that's what he's done. He won the draw against Draisaitl, then beat him to the net on the redirection after a perfect pass from Josh Morrissey. That's big time. That's a big time play at a big time in a game for a team that needed to win. So, agreed. I mean, it's hard to imagine much of a better start for him. Piling up points, but everyone knows he could pile up points. It's the effort that we're seeing in both ends of the rink, and now it's just up to Mark to sustain that. And I think that that's something that we've talked about a lot. Mark is a guy who, he doesn't spend his days worrying about legacy, but he knows that he can have a big impact on games. And right now he is having a big impact on games, and he's an impact player, and that's what he's showing right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, let's get into the coaching change that was made tonight. We talked about, the line change made by the head coach, Rick Bowness. Now, we talked about Rick Bowness, and again, I think he got you covered play. This is one of those times where a coach went in and changed the outcome of the game at the most crucial time of the game, I believe, by getting that line out there. But the change of Iafallo up to that first line, down to the third line. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think happened here, Kenny. I think that when they lost Gabe Vilardi, I think Rick Bowness asked Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele who they wanted up on their line. And both those players, as they told us in their interview, said that they'd played with him before. I think that they'd said, well, give us Mason Appleton. We know what we're getting with him. We've played with him before. We think we've had some success with him before. Let's see what it looks like right now. I think it's a credit to Rick Bowness. I've said this before. I think the Jets, that's why I like the idea when Vilardi gets back over the Iafallo, Lowry, Niederreiter line. Yeah. I really like the idea of that line. I think it achieves everything you want in a third line and ups the potential scoring quotient. But I really liked how he didn't kind of dawdle with this, right? He went in, gave Appleton one game, and I don't think Appleton played terrible, but I think you expect your first line to really pop. And what we see tonight is them going with Alex Iafallo, who's had the hot hand. I love the idea of him saying, okay, let's give an opportunity. You don't lose a lot in taking Mason Appleton off in hustling and forechecking, as Iafallo has showed us time and time again in his short stint with the Winnipeg Jets. But you most definitely, by the numbers in the past and from what we've seen this year with his hot start with the Winnipeg Jets, you add an offensive element with Alex Iafallo on that line that you would not be getting with Mason Appleton. I thought it's a bold move by Rick Bowness, because I think one of the things that you can do especially when you maybe should be winning games and you're losing games you should be winning, I think a coach can start panicking and making too many moves. So I think by that token, sometimes making moves looks like panic. And so in a situation like tonight, I thought it was wise of Rick Bowness to go in that direction. And I thought it took a little bit of courage to do so. And again, this is a coach that's as active in his players in trying to go seek out and hunt wins.
No doubt, Sean. And this, to me, kind of goes back to, 2019 playoffs being around, Rick seeing like changes being made and things of that nature. So I really think it is important. And this is, Sean, this is Rick Bowness telling us on day one before training camp that, I learned a lot about my team last year and we're going to be on top of things. I think maybe last year that runway or that leash is a bit longer for Mason Appleton, just like it probably would have been more than 3 games for Cole Perfetti at center before taking a pause on the experiment at 2C for Cole. So, I mean, that's, everyone talks about Rick's experience, and yeah, Rick is an experienced guy. He's been around for a long time, but if you're not adapting and if you're not trying to learn every day and trying to get better and trying to learn more about your team, you're getting left behind. And right now, Rick Bowness is making moves that can help him. I mean, they can help him, they can help the team, and right now the players are responding to those moves. And I agree with you. I mean, this is a team that likes continuity. Like, they like to have set lines. But when you have versatile players, some nights if somebody's not going, you can. Someone asked earlier about, is Iafallo the new Matthew Perreault? Well, he can be the new Matthew Perreault in terms of providing that spark plug nature. Same with Nemesnikov. You need to get somebody going, give him a couple shifts with Nemesnikov, right? I mean, they'll bring you into the fight, bring you into the game, and I think that's a good job of adapting for Rick Bowness. I mean, I don't see that as panic. I see him as looking for solutions, which is what he's telling us and his players all the time.
No doubt. And he should be looking for solutions in a time like that. And again, it didn't reek of panic. Well, while we're talking about the moves that he made, what did you think of him putting Schmidt back in?
Yeah, I mean, not super surprising. I mean, we talked about it the other day. I thought there was an outside chance maybe Declan Chisholm could get back into the lineup. But what I would say is that, I think he sent him, saying it or not, I mean, if you get scratched against your former team where you had not the best departure, it's a message. It's message sending. There's no other way to explain that, Sean, other than you're sending a message that you need more. And yes, you understand that Nate Schmidt missed the majority of training camp, but a little bit of a rocky start. He responded well. I thought he played just under 17 minutes, including a shift in overtime. So that, if you want to know how the coaching staff felt about him, the fact that Nate Schmidt had a shift in overtime will tell you that the coaches liked how he played and responded. So I would say this. I would say that, Rick Bowness defended Logan Stanley after the game the other night, but if there comes another time where a defenseman is coming into the lineup, I think that Declan Chisholm will be the next defenseman to come in. But, someone asked earlier if Nate had done enough to stay in. I think yes. I mean, the fact that he played almost 17 minutes would tell you that he did enough to stay in the game. And, good for him to respond. That's how he kind of responded last year when he had the one healthy scratch. Of course he doesn't like it. No player in the NHL likes it. If you played in 600 NHL games, nobody wants to be scratched. But what are you going to do about it? You go in and try to play better. I mean, I'm sure he watched a ton of video. He worked hard on those days and got himself back in there and, was back on a pairing with Dylan Sandberg. And, I thought that pairing was steady.
No doubt. Sorry. There's a comment here I just wanted to bring up. This is kind of retroactive. I know we already touched the keg save of the game, but Coachy51 reminded me of this. He says the keg save of the game is Bucky on Hyman breakaway. Gave me hope the Jets could come back, and they did. Two breakaways by Hyman that he saved. Did he not?
Well, no, the other one was Fogle.
It was Fogle. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, that was a great save also,
back
for sure.
To back. And again, in those two situations, like it didn't look like they were close. Like basically the players skated right into him and threw it right into his chest. So it's one of those things. I'll tell you what's happening to a player, especially a high level NHL player at that point, is as they skated in, a lot of times what an NHL player is doing is they're waiting for the goaltender to make the first move. And once they do that, then they can make their move in the other direction. So in both those situations, what you're seeing from Connor Hellebuyck is he outweights, he's got more patience than those guys. And by doing that, the angle closes and closes and closes. And all of a sudden, all you've got to do is throw it into their pads. So again, that was big and boring, quiet Connor Hellebuyck that just suddenly came to play. And I'll be honest with you, Ken, after those first couple of goals and the second one especially, where he kind of went flying across the net and didn't look like he had a chance at it, I know that people were taking him to task on Twitter. And I was thinking to myself, this could get rough here. And then all of a sudden he just locked into the old Connor Hellebuyck that we've seen and known for a really long time. So I just wanted to come back to that. And I want to end on this because a lot of people talked about it. I know that there's comments that I set aside for this. Maybe hard for me to find them, but people wanted to talk about Perfetti and what they're seeing from him. I know his ice time dwindled at the end of the game. Are you seeing what the folks here are seeing and maybe what Rick Bowness is seeing again?
I mean, I don't think he's at his best, but this is normal. I mean, this is a guy who's missed a lot of time in the last 2 years. I've said it, I think, after every game. There are going to be times where, Cole looks like he's 21 years old and finding his way in the NHL. I mean, it was a high-paced game. I think he was okay. He was fine, but, he was not overly impactful. I mean, I'm not going to try to pretend that he was impactful in the game. He had one shot on goal, one attempt. I mean, 11:30 of ice time is not a lot of ice time for a guy who is used to being a top 6 player. So there'll be some chicken and egg there. I think that Cole will work through it. He'll get his he's adapted to the wing. He scored a big goal in the last game, which was important for them. He's not going to score every night. I mean, Cole is a very good hockey player, but he's learning NHL pace. Got a big hit the other night, which was a ridiculous missed call. I think he's playing fine. But he's not at his elite level. I mean, we saw it when he was at a really high level last year. He was pushing Matty Beniers for the, basically for the, points race among rookies. So is he playing at that level yet? No, but he had a lot on his plate at center, and now he's playing on the wing. I think it freed him up a little bit last game. I don't think that Rick Bowness is nervous about it, but there's another level for Cole to reach, and I expect him to keep working hard to reach that level. But I mean, right now, there's room for improvement. But that was going to be the case no matter what. Even if Cole was producing at a point-a-game rate, which would be unrealistic expectations, there are always going to be things that he's going to be working on as a young player at the NHL level. So I'm not concerned about Cole at all. He's a smart player, and he's going to get the job done. But it's going to take some time. I mean, this is not unexpected given what he has gone through in the last 2 seasons prior to this one.
I think I'm not even going to touch that. I think you did a great job of breaking that down. I will touch all the comments about Rennie's automotive here. Listen, you know what I'm going to do Sunday, Ken? I'm going to do some body work for the first time. I'm going to give it a try. I'm honestly doing body work on my truck as well, cutting out some rust, putting some stuff in there. So you all may laugh. You can laugh all you want, but Renny knows how to watch a YouTube video, and he knows how to try and do what those people on YouTube are doing as well. It's worked a couple times. It's worked disastrously at other times, but that's just how it goes. You live and you learn, don't you? Or sometimes you don't live if it's too disastrous, but that's just how it goes. Before I do go, I just want to throw this out. Josh Morrissey is quietly just putting together another phenomenal year. Like on a night like tonight, he scores the first goal that gets the Jets going, kind of interrupts all that momentum that the Oilers had picked up, and that pass is just absolutely perfect. He also found, I think it was Ehlers with that cross ice pass at that one point that Ehlers didn't really handle. That probably should have found its way into the back of the net. But Josh Morrissey is just quietly picked up right where he left off, is plugging away, doing phenomenal work. I just thought that he deserves a shout out because of all that. And you know who else deserves a shout out, Ken, is every single person I see as of right now, and I know some people left because they know we're shutting things down here, but 272 people in the chat room right now at 1:32 in the morning. I've said this before. We've had late shows like this, and it always blows me away how many people stick around. But geez, it always means something to us when you show up and take in the show. But to hang out with us this late at night, I just we are so lucky to have an audience that is as passionate about the game as you are, and just always dying to get a wake up from Ken with some of your comments. It's just crazy to me. Thank you for that. And I want to say thank you to our sponsors. If you appreciate the conversation happening at this space at 1:32 in the morning, please appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Lou Furlan, Sweet Lou Furlan, the Kenny and Renny OGs in the Johnston Group, and TCB, who keep the Lamplighter Amber Ale flowing, and the Keg getting guys out of the doghouse for years. I just told Mrs. Renny for the first time today. I had someone over, a friend, and he listens to the podcast. And I told Mrs. Renny I've been using her as an example on the show of why we go to the Keg to get out of the doghouse. And she was, I guess Mrs. Renny doesn't listen to the show as much as some other people can, but we got a kick out of that one. Anyways, all of you, really appreciate your time. Thank you for showing up. We're going to do this again. When's the next game, Ken?
Tuesday against the St. Louis Blues.
Tuesday against the St. Louis Blues. Let's go as the Winnipeg Jets try to get back to 500 on the season. St. Louis hasn't exactly been a pushover so far this year, so it should be a good game. I think it will be, and I think I'd love to see you all after that game right here on Kenny and Renny. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night, everybody.